Funding for Elwood City Limits is provided by, me, I guess. Doesn't really cost much. And from viewers like you. Thank you.
My free time. That's what funds this.
Welcome to the next episode of Elwood City Limits, the episodic Arthur podcast. Feels like it's been a while. For you, dear listeners, it may not have been, but for us, it's been about a month since our last recording. My name is Will Young, and with me, as always, is Lucas Mancini. Hey,
Hello.
Lucas. And it's good to be back, and we are going through Arthur, the PBS show Arthur, episode by episode, and we are happy to be back to it because this one is I didn't realize it was going to be this early in the season that we were getting this one, but I'm very, very happy because these are two favorites, I think, for different reasons.
We sort of needed a month-long break to prepare ourselves for this one because the first two episodes we watched, I was like, okay, yeah, it's got the morals of Arthur, it's setting up the characters. I think now we're getting into the stuff where it makes Arthur so memorable. It's really reaching its stride with this third episode.
Yeah. Of course, you can email the show at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com about any and every little thing. And if you want to follow along with the podcast, Arthur is readily available. If you Google search it, YouTube, there's a full episode rip of this one, which is the third episode of the first season, DW All Wet and Buster's Dino Dilemma. And of course, you can find them in various other places as well.
Just don't tell the cops.
Let's get to it. The first in our pair of episodes is indeed DW All Wet, and I forgot that the episode began with child abuse.
Yeah, also a child abuse flashback.
As Arthur narrates their arrival at the beach, DW is astride her father's shoulder, screaming she is, and my God, the racked sobbing that is coming from this child is like, and like everybody starts looking at them because, like, obviously, if this was happening in a mall, when this does happen in a public place, you turn and look, you turn to Rubberneck.
It's a really great example of like the voice work of DW and how solid it is. Throughout this whole episode, it's going to be a running theme, but like I forget the name of the voice actress, but the voice work behind DW, especially in this episode, the range of getting these screams out. I don't know about yourself, but I've done some voice work here and there. Okay. And we work in radio, so you've had to yell or raise your voice for spots.
Absolutely.
And it could be really difficult to make it not feel forced or get the right volume naturally, and it's really impressive, this DW performance.
Well, as we noted in kind of the first episode, we took the time out to mention a couple of the voice actors, and you're right. Actually, I have a note here for a bit later in the episode, but it still applies here. Michael Kalos, who is the voice of DW,
so it's
a younger boy.
Young boy.
Very, very good performance, especially here, and of course, this is the voice you associate most commonly with DW, and for good reason, because as you said, a great deal of range and. Especially a lot of humor, I think, is able, especially for such a young actor. That must have been really difficult to find the right voice. So as they come onto the beach, Arthur explains, of course, that DW is freaked out by the beach because of a visit to the aquarium that she made, which is going to be the beginning of the episode. One of my favorite part of the whole thing is just at the end when DW is getting nearer the water. She reaches out to Arthur's face, grabs his glasses, and goes, "Arthur, save me."
It's so dramatic.
It's so DW. DW is a complete drama queen, and it's the best delivery. Like, I remember that delivery so well. Oh, man, it's the greatest. So the episode does indeed start off at the aquarium, and then, so the first thing that I thought of, DW and her preschool class are at the aquarium, kind of like a aquatic show of like seals and whales and stuff like that. And once again, we see kind of the animal hierarchy of Arthur in that these animals, dogs, aardvarks, bunnies, other types of rabbits, cats, let's say,
Moose.
are watching these other animals who are not that high on the food chain perform for them. And so it's just kind of a weird thing that I think really only adults notice or even could possibly care about.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where if you think about it for longer than maybe half a second, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
Like Arthur's got a dog, obviously, but he's also friends with dogs.
Who also debuts in this episode.
That's correct.
And, of course, the pal gets his own episode, but we see his first appearance here. So this one's a little bit of non-sequential storytelling.
The first thing I noticed about this episode is, so it makes it very obvious. The start of this episode takes place in the aquarium.
Yes.
And that's sort of the set piece for the first half of it. And it got me thinking, this episode would have premiered in the early 90s, right? Like around 90... Mid-90s.
Mid.
And it got me thinking about like how much the public perception of these sort of like orca water shows has changed since then. People think, I want to say very negatively, when you bring up the word SeaWorld, people will react immediately negatively to SeaWorld. I think, at least in my experience, we talk about Shamu and the mistreatment of those animals and that kind of stuff. And I think there's sort of a different light cast on these kind of water shows. So it's interesting how much more, I want to say, naive or
uninformed
the public opinion was back then.
And especially because in like media, that was the decade that saw like the revival of Flipper.
Free Willy.
That
Michael Jackson song.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a bit more, it was definitely more okay. And these days, I mean, it still is. I mean, SeaWorld's still a thing, and aquariums and these types of shows and whatnot. I mean, for goodness sakes, it was in Jurassic World.
I just went to an aquarium this year. I went to the New England Aquarium when I went to Boston.
Nice.
So.
Oh, Boston, where Arthur would have emanated from, WGBH Boston.
Oh, look at that.
All right.
Maybe it was the same one. Maybe it was based on the aquarium I went to.
Oh, you should have taken notes. So DW and her class, of course, it's a water show. It's a lot of fun for kids. And then the person, directs them to the Hall of Sea Monsters, especially the shark. By the way, Hall of Sea Monsters is the title of my next album.
Oh, yeah. So before they get to the Hall of Sea Monsters, they're all impressed by this water show. Yeah. And one of the kids asks a very, I think, important question.
Yeah.
How do they go to the washroom?
DW herself actually does. Where do they go to the bathroom?
And the trainer explains they go right in the water. The kids are disgusted, rightly so. I don't think they understand chlorine and how it breaks down the bacteria.
Sure.
But this kind of poop joke, I think this is the first poop joke in Arthur. We also cut to the kids hanging out in the SeaWorld bathroom, and they're just as excited about the fact that the toilets flush themselves as they are about the water show they just saw. One of the kids exclaims, "It flushes by itself!"
Which, as a kid in the 90s, was very cool.
It's very next level, very 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I was wondering if you were gonna mention this. There are two kind of caretakers for the excursion. They get into the transition from the aquatic show to the bathroom when one of them says, "Speaking of bathrooms."
I didn't notice that. That's fantastic.
It's great. It's just like,
and the teacher asked them, "Okay, is it time to go check out the what was it called again? The
Hall of Sea Monsters."
The Hall of Sea Monsters. And the kids are like, "No, we'd prefer to stay in the bathroom.
You don't want to spend all day in the bathroom?" "Yes, we do." Oh, it's great.
And so they promise the Hall of Sea Monsters will make you lose your mind with fear.
I was hoping you would.
Again, the second time we've talked about Lovecraft on this show.
Oh my God,
but
that's great.
You will lose your mind with fear. These sea monsters are so scary.
Now, I could understand DW being scared of the water if she saw Cthulhu in that aquarium and did literally lose her mind with fear.
Yeah.
That would explain the hallucinations later of
exactly
turning into an octopus. Oh, this kind of fits. I kind of like it. But I do have a bone to pick with that announcement that she said, come to the Hall of Sea Monsters with monstrous monsters.
Yeah, the writers, maybe they were a little tired that day.
Come on. So, of course, they do go to the Hall of Sea Monsters. And the shark shows up, and DW is very fearless and just kind of gets in its face, makes a couple faces, and it swims away. But she's not as brave as she thinks, because then this huge octopus just comes out of nowhere. And so the octopus is enormous. And I'm I don't know if I've even seen an octopus in an aquarium or what have you. But my first thought of this is, you have this very big tank. How have we not gotten mega shark versus giant octopus at all? Do they just kind of
Mega shark versus giant octopus has to have happened. That's happened.
Do they just have a thing at this point where they kind of lock eyes and kind of nod and leave each other alone, or is it a constant turf war?
Oh, you're talking about there is a film called Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus.
That's what I was referencing.
Yes,
yeah.
but you're saying like the octopus and the shark occupy the same tank in this aquarium.
But when the octopus is so big and it'll just eat whatever's there, like why hasn't it taken a poke at the shark? Shark's clearly smaller.
They're probably plotting against, because I'm to assume every animal in the Arthur universe is as intelligent as at least Arthur himself. They're probably plotting together to eventually take on the earth creatures, the land mammals.
That's terrifying.
Well, it's also terrifying. The person that points out the octopus to DW, little wrestling reference here. He's basically the Arthur-fied version of Jim Cornette. He
does look a little bit that way, doesn't he?
He's got the southern accent, and he goes, "That's an octopus." He's like a slim Arthur Jim Cornette. Now, when we see this octopus, my first thought is the aquarium in New England, in Boston, that I went to, the New England Aquarium, had an octopus itself. Yeah. And it definitely was the most frightening animal there. And I can't remember if they had sharks, but they had huge electric eels, much like the one seen right before the octopus shows up. And which really scared me about the octopus is ours were a lot smaller, the ones in this tank I saw, but they talked about how because they have essentially no bones, their ability to expand and make themselves small is crazy. So the ones I was looking at were able to fit in these tiny jars that they had in the tank, but the little blurb they write in front of the tank talked about how it could basically fill the space of the whole tank if it wanted to. It could spread all of its limbs out, and it would be huge. And that was like, there's a real visceral fear to that.
Wow. I mean, it makes me wonder, like, why it doesn't. But I don't know anything about animal behavior.
I think it doesn't feel threatened when it's in that tank, but I think if I was to jump in, then it would expand and take me out.
Yeah, octopuses are kind of low-key, very chilling, I'd say. So, of course, DW gets freaked out by the octopus, and the transitions back home, where it's one of the big points of this episode is that it's a heat wave, which we here on the east coast of the Maritimes currently experiencing a bit of a heat wave ourselves. So I could really relate with this as DW kind of tells the story of how she quote-unquote, fought off the octopus. And this is where we get the first appearance of Pal. Unnamed, just kind of their small yellow dog, doesn't have his red collar. And so I imagine that this is probably not long after Arthur probably trained him, because I don't know when he got the red, because when he was still kind of being housebroken, he didn't have the collar. And then,
right. And it's non-sequential, like you said. So.
Yes. If we're going for any kind of visual continuity, which we definitely don't have to, it is a children's cartoon. But he's very cute, and I'm a big fan of Pal, and I'm looking forward to having him on the show relatively soon in the season. I think I wrote right about here Michael Callos' great performance of DW, because Pal licks her hand when Arthur's like, "I bet you were scared," and then DW's like, "I was not," and licks her hand. And she's like, "Ah!" Like a real top of the throat scream.
Oh, the screams are so great. We couldn't even begin to try and imitate them to do them justice.
The kind of vocal flexibility that only young kids have.
And it's crazy. We talk about, like, there's images from Arthur that are still in my mind from when I was a kid that I very remember, especially even in this episode, the two sequences we're going to hear about. There's images that I totally remember to this day, but even more so, I was surprised by how much specific lines and specific, like, screams or musical stings stuck out in my head so much more.
Because when they get good ones early on, like, they recycle the crap out of those. But you hear those a lot.
But even, like, specific deliveries, like DW's deliveries and stuff on certain lines in this episode, they stick out so much. They're so, to me at least, iconic.
Yes.
I'm not sure to anyone else.
No, I definitely relate with that as well. And so Arthur goes a little bit of the extra mile while DW's taking a bath that night. alone, which is weird for a 4-year-old. Took me a little bit of a longer time to be able to bathe on my own, but whatever. She's clearly quite intelligent for her age, and Arthur surprises her with a octopus on a line, which is just a spider, and DW just gets Buck and runs out of the bathtub. And my favorite thing is that she runs into her parents' room, opens the closet, and the closet of her parents' room, not her room, which is about the same distance from the bathroom, runs to her parents' room in the closet and slams the door with the bubble bath only obscuring her nudity. And her mom's reaction is the best. She's just in there reading, sees her daughter run in completely naked except for bubbles, and slam the closet door. She goes, "What the?" just a perfectly placed, just a perfect what the.
That line stops right when it needs to. She's the level of surprise is perfect. When Arthur's sneaking up on DW with the spider, aka octopus, there's a great off-brand Jaws theme that they use. It's a few chords off where it's almost exactly the Jaws theme.
Which they also used when the shark showed up, appropriately enough. Yes, you're right, of course. And goes along with their kind of also pseudo-psycho sting at the end of that.
And it's not the only thing they rip from movies for this particular episode. There's specific lines that I think have to be throwbacks to 80s films.
Sure.
You can really see the age of the people who would have been working on Arthur at this time would have been well within that group where they would have grown up with these 80s movies, because those references are strewn throughout.
For sure. So, of course, Arthur gets in trouble for that. And then we cut to DW. First, we cut to what is clearly a dream sequence of Arthur being menaced underwater by an octopus. And, when I really thought about this, this is pretty dark, because it's Arthur's underwater, he's running out of air real soon, and that octopus is making some real slow moves on him, and I do not like the designs that it may have for him.
No, there's a real, again, it's very Lovecraftian. There's a real, the old ones that dwell below kind of vibe to it, of not only Arthur being probably going to be suffocated by this octopus, but also he's just drowning, which is horrifying for any kid's cartoon. A drowning dream sequence, because I think that's a pretty common nightmare as well.
Yeah.
So people can relate to the fear of your lungs filling with water.
Geez, shouldn't describe it in too much detail, but but of course it's not Arthur's nightmare; it's DW's pleasant dream, as she is smiling a big old grin as she is fast asleep, which is kind of a snapshot of a journey with me into the mind of a maniac.
Before that, she lets us know, us the viewer know just how much she was upset with Arthur. She tells her parents, when her mom scolds Arthur, she tells him to go to his room. DW says, "Don't come out until I say so." And not only that, but the parents ask, "DW, are you okay?" And she goes, "I hope an octopus eats Arthur." So at least in her dreams, her wish came true.
Yeah. We can only assume, and thankfully didn't get to that part. So Arthur's first up the next day, and of course, as they said, going through a heat wave. Great move by him, freezing a shirt. Have not done that yet. Can't believe I haven't tried it.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. It gets really hot in my apartment. I don't have air conditioning, and I sleep a lot like Arthur's parents are. When we see them reacting to the heat wave, they're kind of strewn about above the covers with the fan going, very similar to how I'm currently sleeping. It's very Do the Right Thing, if you remember that movie taking place during a heat wave.
Oh, yes, I do.
And I got to steal the freezing the shirt, or at least freezing my boxer shorts.
Ooh, that's not a bad idea.
Just hope it doesn't make the bed too wet.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Arthur's doing it while he's awake. And so Buster calls him and asks if they have air conditioning, which he does in his dad's kitchen, which makes sense. His dad, a caterer. I'm not sure if this was the first mention of the fact that his dad's a caterer.
No, because he's making some cool wrestling cake in an earlier episode.
He was kind of using that molding clay. And so I love that the setting they turn it to is unbelievably freezing cold.
I wrote that as well.
Which apparently can just make ice cubes out of thin air. It freezes the air around it into ice cube form, which, great. I could totally use some of that.
Well, it's a whole nother level up from freezing cold. There's unbelievably freezing cold. It's so cold you have to suspend your disbelief. It's sort of this air conditioner's version of what was that movie with the band? The fake metal band, and they had an amp that could turn up to 11.
This is Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. It's sort of the air conditioner version of Spinal Tap's amp that went up to 11.
This one goes up to unbelievably freezing cold. So, of course, they get caught, which I don't think should be that big of a deal. I mean, I know you probably shouldn't be using the air conditioner when you're 8 years old, but it's just like, well, it's just him and his friend having fun. Like, really, I wouldn't get too cross at them. But except their chicanery leads to the air conditioner exploding.
It combusts, like, completely. And it's not even like, I know in animation often they'll use hyperbole, like things will happen unrealistically. So Wile E. Coyote, he'll fall to his death but then be okay. He'll fall thousands of feet off a cliff. But Arthur's not really a kind of show like that. Like, except for the dream sequences, it really sticks to reality. But this is like a full-on explosion, a column of flame. There's sparks, and then we
It's a step below Death Star.
Exactly. And then it even shows the aftermath, and the air conditioner's totaled. Apparently unbelievably freezing cold. They didn't take it through the proper inspections or something.
That's going to get recalled.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the Toyota recall of those years ago where Toyotas were going off the road. They should try and get a class action lawsuit.
They could get some sweet skrill from a class action lawsuit. That's a great idea. I love how dramatic Arthur's mom and dad are before they, say, let's go to the lake, which is, of course, the most common sense thing in the world when it's a hot day. But, his dad's just like, that's it. I've had it. Like, looking right in Arthur's eyes, and of course Arthur's like, had what? And his mom's like, you're right. I can't take it anymore. And I'm like, what? I'm sure Arthur's just like, what are they going to do? Are you gonna kill me?
They're talking like Ryan Seacrest on the episodes of American Idol where they weren't the performance episodes, they were the elimination episodes, and Ryan would be like, and the next person eliminated is not. Yeah, he would really draw it out for the commercial break.
Or just like, will be revealed next. As they're getting ready to pack up the car to go to Bear Lake, which DW is not for, she kind of assumes the victim position with her blankie, cameo by DW's blankie as she's kind of huddled up on top of like the cooler and just adamantly refusing to go.
As they're deciding to go to their trip to the beach, it got me thinking, have you ever thought about where in America you think Elwood City is? Because I was thinking about the kind of climate they're experiencing, this heat wave. And I also, of course, thought ahead to, I have knowledge of later Arthur episodes. They do have a winter, so it's definitely not far on the West Coast.
Right.
And so it got me thinking, from the shots of Elwood City we see, I think it might be based off Chicago or somewhere in the like a bigger city in the American Midwest,
so
like Minnesota or
Illinois.
Chicago. Yeah.
And the thing is that they're regional. They don't have really any regional accents.
That's right. Jim Cornette earlier let us know that guy was from the South.
You did say Jim Cornette, but like I didn't really find his voice all that Southern. In fact, I didn't pick up on an accent at all. But yeah, there isn't really a consistent accent, which of course would really regionalize the show, which you don't really need to do. It's kind of for everybody, but
it's very Springfield-esque.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be in everywhere town.
But I've never really thought about it. But that's a good point. Like we already know to eliminate the West Coast because indeed they do get pretty heavy winters. They can get too.
I think either because they go to the woods and stuff, either Chicago or Minneapolis. Those are my guesses of where it's based on.
Not bad. I wonder if there's perhaps where I don't know where Mark Brown would have grown up.
That's interesting. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up for next episode. So of course they go to Bear Lake, Arthur, Buster, and the family. What's your experience with swimming? Like, are you much of a swimmer?
So I used to be. It's funny. There was a point in my life where I just pretty much stopped swimming altogether. Pretty much around my early teens. Nowadays, I hardly ever swim. It's just not something I find fun. I just kind of find it kind of boring. Yeah. Once you get in the water, it's like, all right, what do I do now? But I used to. We live fairly close to Shuby Park in Halifax.
Yes.
So that's got a great lake there. And I used to swim there all the time in my childhood.
Okay. I took swimming lessons at a very early age and did it until I was, I'd say preteen.
Oh, no, I was just pointing you. What level did you get to?
Oh, I got to AquaQuest 12 was where I stopped.
I think I was AquaQuest 7. So you got far longer than me.
There was one level of AquaQuest. And by the way, AquaQuest, I don't even know if they still do it, but it was a program, I want to say, at least in Canada, where it was kind of different levels, almost like a school/academic approach to swimming lessons, where every level was kind of based towards an age group, and you would just kind of you would have to fulfill whatever the level called for. Like I think I had to redo 6 or 8 like 3 times, and it was like it really messed with my head. I remember like I failed twice at it. And now that I think about it, it was really one of the first experiences of like trying my best and still failing, which is a terrible feeling, but it is necessary in the development of, especially a young person, and especially considering like before that, I think I had like earned 2 badges in like one go.
So so they gave you physical badges with the AquaQuest number on them.
Yeah.
And so my parents probably signed me up just to teach me the basics of swimming, because AquaQuest 1 is like you still have floaties on and you're doing the doggy paddle. Yeah. And I remember once I got past like the basics, probably around 5, I hated doing the swimming lessons.
Yeah.
And AquaQuest 7, we were doing stuff like butterfly stroke and backstroke. And at that point, I just didn't see the point, because I knew how to basically float in the water without drowning, and that's all I wanted to know as a kid. Eventually, I think the way the AquaQuest system worked was you were building your up. If you got to a certain level, that was like lifeguard certification.
Yes, after 12 was when you could go into like bronze star and like when you would be competitively swimming, or you could do the lifeguard program, and I wasn't interested in doing either. And really, it's up to the parents' discretion. Like my mother wanted to see me through the whole way just so I could be a proficient swimmer, which I am. And I often forget how much I really like to swim because I don't do it. I hardly ever do it. And it's just because I'm not really near a beach. I only recently got a car, so I don't really have a means of getting myself to a beach. I don't really go to a pool anymore. But I love to swim, and it's something I forget a lot.
If I was definitely going to swim these days, it would definitely be in a beach or a lake, because I've this year alone read way too many opinion pieces or hot takes about just what a vacuum of disease public pools. Yeah, a cesspool is the word I'm looking for. Cesspool of disease public pools are. Turns out that chlorine, it ain't doing all you think it is.
Yeah, and of course, I think that's more appealing to a kid, being in like a pool with like a bunch of people in there. Now that I'm older, it's just like I can really see the appeal of the adult swim.
You realize, that's why the kids' pool was so much warmer than the adult pool.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Yuck. So, of course, they're going there. Buster's thing is that his mother is making him wear a swimming cap for his ears, which, of course, is, ugly. It's very ugly.
It's a pretty gaudy swimming cap. And I always wondered, even as a kid, I didn't understand this fully, but I don't know what the implication is supposed to be, why Buster is supposed to wear this swimming cap over his ears. Because he, later in this episode, swims fine without it. So it's not a safety thing. I assume it's for, like, aesthetic reasons why people wear swimming caps in the real human world. It's so they don't mess up their hair, right?
Well, and I think in this case, it's also probably because as his mother is characterized early on, she's a bit of a worrywart. And I feel like it's probably to prevent water getting in his ears, which of course can lead to swimmer's ear and stuff like that. And his ears are so big that that could probably very easily happen. I always assumed that was why she was so insistent on it. When Arthur and Buster are kind of racing to the water, they're just like ready, set, and then it cuts to Kate, and she just goes, "Go." And
is that her first line in the series?
I guess that would be her first word, and she looks really cute. So Francine and Muffy join them as well. They're kind of get up to some fun, and DW's kind of hanging out on the beach. Her mom finds her and kind of convinces Arthur and Buster to kind of play with her for a little bit.
They're in one of those classic like army tents. And I remember always being jealous of Arthur. Those tents that are a perfect triangle.
Yeah,
you can't really buy those these days. Tents look a lot more complex.
Yeah, they're a lot more
geometric,
sophisticated,
and dome-like. And I remember as a kid, I used to go camping with my dad a lot, and I always feel jealous because I was like, these tents don't look like the one from Arthur.
but they're probably a lot better and easier to set up. I never camped with my family, and I'm not generally a huge fan from the like one experience I had. Arthur and Buster play with DW for a little bit, then they get back to the water, and DW won't go in. And she's talking with her dad, and this is the first time I've ever noticed this. So her dad's laying down, they're under the umbrella, and he's kind of got his eyes closed, just kind of resting a little bit. And then a woman walks by, and you can kind of see him like open his eyes a little bit and like open an eye and kind of check her out. Like he totally checks out that woman. And like if you watch the episode about 10 minutes in, like, and you just see him open his eye a little bit and then go back down, it's like he totally checked that girl out.
Arthur's dad is such a great character. The writers really play with him along the course of the series. I mean, of course, it's a lot more mild because it's a children's show, but he really resembles the same kind of tone of Stan's dad from South Park.
Okay.
He's that same kind of goofy dad character that's sort of supposed to be the all dad, the living embodiment of a dad joke, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the space that Arthur's dad occupies, and it's really fun.
His wackiness really gets to come out as the series goes along, and I do like Arthur's dad a lot. Arthur and his friends start fooling around with the swimming cap and pretending it's an octopus, and DW is concerned because she thinks it's a real octopus, and Arthur's dad kind of rolls over just like, not now, DW. Just like, he has probably heard this night and day. Like for like the last day, he has probably heard it 24, and he is done.
This is his one chance to sleep on the sand with his white T-shirt on, which
Yeah.
you get that shirt really dirty. But he's so tired and relaxed, he does not care.
It's so hot. He just wants to take a load off, and this kid won't stop barking at him about octopuses that don't exist.
Now, before we get into this, DW is playing with Arthur and Buster.
Yes.
Before they get bored of playing with her, and the reason is she offers all these games for them to play. Well, no, so Arthur and Buster offers these games to play, and
Yes.
one of Buster's suggestions is actually pretty violent for children. Commando Raid is a game he suggests playing. And it sounds pretty cool. I'd like to play Commando Raid. I wonder what the rules are.
I was always curious what Buster meant by Commando Raid. Like I thought that was an actual game.
I wonder what Buster would think of The Raid 2. Would he be into that movie? I bet he'd like it.
Oh,
he seems like he's got good taste.
Oh, I bet you Buster when he's like in college, I bet he's all about those movies. I bet he's got a Fight Club poster in his dorm.
Oh no, Buster's that kid.
Well,
You haven't really seen Pulp Fiction until you've seen it in this order that some fan made online.
I'd say he's a milder version of that. I wouldn't say that he's all the way that, but I definitely think there's that in him, or at least maybe I'm projecting that into him. So DW is determined to save Arthur, and it's really adorable because she gets the lifeguard's help off camera, and it's like she's swimming to him, and it's just the lifeguard kind of moving her. It's just like
Such a great visual gag.
That's really cute, and it's just like as much as she dreamed about his literal death at the hands of an octopus, it's kind of nice that she kind of comes to him when she thinks he's in need.
The way they frame it is so funny because the camera cuts to DW swimming to what she believes is to save Arthur's life, and the camera is a really close-in shot of DW, so it looks like she's heroically swimming herself.
Yeah.
And then it's a zoom out, and it's the lifeguard holding her up completely, so DW's just kind of...
Oh, yeah, it's totally hip deep. And so, of course, they were just fooling around. Lifeguard gets after them and then forces Buster to wear the swim cap again, which by this point they have already filled with sand and, like, water. It must be disgusting.
If you hit somebody with that, you could do some serious damage. Muffy points out, Muffy's got a really morbid mind. Muffy screams, "It looks like a dead octopus," very matter-of-factly.
It does, though, since, she's definitely not wrong. And so the mystery of swimming and the ocean is kind of debunked for DW by the lifeguard. Of course, there are no octopuses in the octopi, in the lake. And then after that, she just spends the rest of the day in and around the water. And we cut to as the sun is setting, and she's kind of making Arthur be her horse and kind of buck her backwards into the water. She's having the time of her life, and it's just like that's. It's the kind of joy that you get as a kid if you really enjoy swimming. And, like, I would get it all the time of just, like, I would stay at the swimming club that my family and I would belong to, and I would just stay there from afternoon until sunset, and I would just never want to leave because I loved swimming so much. And so that's the same thing that DW has now. And, of course, on the way back to the car, she falls asleep because, of course, well, even now, like as an adult, like after I swim, because it really is quite a workout if you move around a lot, and I just get out of there and I'm just like, okay, I gotta take a nap. I'm bushed.
Yeah, she has so much fun. She tires herself out, and we get this shot of the sunset as the sun's going down over the water. And what I thought was going to happen was I thought they were gonna have a little twist at the end, and I was so certain this was gonna happen too, that an octopus would poke out over the horizon out of the water, or at least something like an orca or something.
Sure,
but it didn't happen
because Arthur sometimes dabbles in magic realism, so it wouldn't be outside of the question. Okay, so that's DW All Wet. The episode the video that I watched of these two episodes didn't have a word from us kids for this one.
Yeah.
But I actually remember it, and it was where these people, I guess, who worked in an aquarium brought in different, like, animals that you can transport. So, like, clams, sea cucumbers. You have, like, little fish and stuff. So they're just kind of, like, playing with fish and all that sort of stuff.
Every field trip we ever went to, like the Marine Biology Museum or the local, whatever it was, the Marine Biology facility, and they had the touch tank where you could reach in and touch the crabs and all these different things. Everybody was touching those sea cucumbers. Man, something about those sea cucumbers, for me, I don't like looking at them. I don't like touching them. They're squishy. They don't have any discernible features whatsoever. Sometimes they shoot stuff out, and it's real weird. They're like a living version of those things you would buy from the dollar store where if you squeeze them, they slip out of your hand over and over and over again. Sea cucumbers they just don't get along. So if I was in that episode, they'd pan up from all the kids having fun and touching the sea cucumber to me in the corner, probably in the fetal position.
They do not agree with you. Okay. Well, learning more about Lucas Mancini and his dislike of sea cucumbers. And, of course, naturally we go from sea cucumbers to their natural link in the animal kingdom, dinosaurs, for Buster's Dino Dilemma. Now, we talked about swimming. You kind of mentioned your experience with camping. What was your feeling on dinosaurs when you were little?
So when I was a kid, I was way into robots, but I had a next-door neighbor who was way into dinosaurs, and he was French-Canadian. So I remember this so vividly. He had every single Land Before Time movie, and there was a lot of them. The first one came out in theaters, but they made a bunch of straight to VHS ones.
And the weird thing is that I always watched the one that I always rented was the Land Before Time 2. I'm not even sure if I've seen the first Land Before Time.
But so there's... Yeah, because the first one was kind of a big feature film. I think it was like one of those Don Bluth movies.
It was, yeah.
And they just kept making them and making them. It was sort of the same thing as like The Lion King. There's like 3 Lion King movies, but nobody knows. Everybody just watches the first one. But The Land Before Time had about 10 installments.
Yeah, the finger thing means the money, so they kept cranking them out.
And I remember seeing the row of VHS tapes because my next-door neighbor, he was so into dinosaurs. But here's the dark twist was they were all in French. So whenever I watched Land Before Time, I just didn't understand what was happening.
Le Ducky and Le Petrie.
Le Ducky and Le Petrie. Je m'appelle Ducky.
Yeah. So of course this one's going to be more dinosaur focused. I should mention, I think like any young boy, I liked dinosaurs a lot. I didn't see Jurassic Park until I was a bit older. I actually remember I saw The Lost World in the theaters with a friend of mine, and we were right up at the front. I was not more than 10 years old. I think it was like 8, and I just remember being overwhelmed.
My parents didn't let me watch the Jurassic Park movies till I was about 13, and I remember, or maybe even earlier, maybe around 12 or 11, because I remember them scaring me, and it's pretty wimpy for those to scare a 13-year-old.
Okay, yeah.
But I also remember my dad always used to tell me this. I was a big Elmo's World fan as a kid.
All right.
And my dad would always point out that one of the Mr. Noodles, one of the actors that played Mr. Noodle from Elmo's World, was a guy who gets eaten at the start of Jurassic Park 3. He's the pilot in Jurassic Park 3.
Okay, so this is the weirdest thing. So I'm watching this YouTube channel now called No Small Parts.
Okay.
And I just watched an episode that was all about him. It's a YouTube channel about character actors.
Right.
And oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. But they did an episode that was all about him, and he's fascinating. The actor's name is Michael Jeter. Like they're all like it's cool, like all of the stories that come from these character actors that you recognize their face, but you may not know their name. And that guy was featured in there. So it's so funny you say that. Like I literally just watched that earlier today. Great channel, by the way. Check out No Small Parts. Really recommend it. I didn't see Jurassic Park as a kid, so I kind of missed the childlike wonder of it. But Jurassic Park is an amazing movie. It's one of my favorite of all time. And I had a couple of like dinosaur magazines and toys and whatnot. But it wasn't really like a big thing. I just like dinosaurs. Like,
No.
and I shouldn't say like every little boy. Like boys, girls, and everybody can like dinosaurs.
Will, what's your favorite dinosaur? I know it's a tough one. I got you on the spot.
I think it's a Triceratops, and I think it's because of the Power Rangers. I think
Solid
I
choice.
think the biggest interest that I had in dinosaurs was the fact that the Power Rangers had 3 of them on their team. 3 dinosaurs and 2 also rans of the prehistoric era. So I think it was the Triceratops because it's like the T-Rex is a bit of an obvious choice, and the Velociraptor is the one that all the edgy kids like, and then the Triceratops just kind of hanging out, like he can kind of defend himself, and he's just a cool guy. Like Triceratops is a cool guy, or at least that's the way I say it. Plus,
he's a herbivore, correct?
Yeah,
The
yes.
spikes are just for defense.
Yeah, he is. Also big time respect to the pterodactyl.
Yes.
The flying, one of the only flying
Though,
ones.
isn't it not technically a dinosaur? This is so off.
Yeah,
we can talk about dinosaurs all day.
Dinosaur enthusiasts can correct me till the cows come home. I'm never going to learn it. I fully admit to taking all of my knowledge from Jurassic Park, which is frequently incorrect. So I understand that, and we shall continue on.
Well, I was going to say, before we continue on, my favorite as a kid was the one from Jurassic Park that like spit venom into Newman's face.
Yeah.
And I believe, again, we're showing our weakness here, but I believe that one has been debunked as being 2 dinosaurs combined since then. Yeah. But how would I know? I'm not a respectable paleontologist.
Right.
Like we will soon meet in this episode.
And actually, clearly, the answer is the Q-Rex because it's the best dinosaur. It's just objectively the best dinosaur. We start off. Buster and Arthur are actually Arthur's talking about when people in his life have kind of gotten obsessed with things. DW's obsessed with playing a video game. Francine is obsessed with shooting, baskets in a row.
100 baskets. And I'm like, Francine, I know you got to start small, but Michael Jordan did 1,000 a day. You can do 100 in a row if you really keep at it.
Yeah. And ball's life for Francine, as we've said before. And now Buster's thing is dinosaurs. So they're watching some sort of Jurassic Park adjacent movie. Buster's way into it, and everybody else is freaked out. And then, of course, the crux of the episode is that they're going to Rainbow Rock State Park, where they will hunt for fossils of all kinds, including dinosaurs. And, of course, Buster is way amped into that one. And
another clue, Rainbow Rock State Park. Depending on how long their bus trip was, it's another clue if we can figure out what cities are close to a big mountainous Canyon Lake State Park like that.
Yeah,
to where Elwood City could be.
My geography is really bad, so this is not my area of expertise. I may get you to look into that. This is my favorite title card of. Because I mentioned before that we had the episode that was Buster focused, and I said the one that I really like is the one where he does the big burp, and that was that one. So I got a good laugh out of that one. So they get there by bus to Rainbow Rock State Park, and Mr. Ratburn in his safari alt gear. You press C right 2 times, and you get Mr. Ratburn in safari gear. Please file out of the bus in an orderly fashion. To which Binky starts us off real strong with his Triceratops impression, which is very involved, and he's getting way into it. And then, of course, the nameless bunny kid that follows him.
I was just going to say, who is this guy?
It's one of those Arthur extras who never gets a name. And, after his poor T-Rex performance, I don't want to know his name. Because Binky like does a good couple of seconds of like riffing on the Triceratops roar.
Yeah.
This kid just is like, T-Rex roar, and I'm just like, you didn't even try, dude. Like, you're here. Like, put a little gusto into it.
He must have not have seen the YTV advertisement where the kid's like, my thing's sound effects. Here's a T-Rex.
Oh, boy.
Not only Mr. Ratburn wearing safari gear, but in one way or another, all the kids seem to be getting their clothes from maybe the same Hollywood backlot that Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World took place in. They're all kind of dressed like the villains from that movie, who are all dressed to hunt the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of got that plain brown khaki short outfit going on.
Well, Buster's a little bit between that and like the villains from like kind of looks like a Nazi from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I was just
like
gonna say Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, totally.
So and because he pressed C right 2 times and that's his Safari Buster, and I just want to know how Arthur got roped into being a pack mule because his backpack and sundry is 5 feet tall. Like, how did he possibly agree to that?
It's actually, they really play into the imagery in a lot of, so like there's a whole genre of literature, like the Lost World genre, about like Don Quixote and all that kind of literary worlds, where there's even the actual original Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Lost World, where they go and get the dinosaur. And they all kind of have those character archetypes where there's the heroic figure in his classical safari gear, and there's always his assistant who's carrying all the stuff behind him. That's a really classic Lost World image.
Wow, that's a good reference there. I wasn't even aware of that. Very good. So they're met by Ranger Ruth, who's going to kind of take them through the ins and outs of fossils. And Buster is showing an odd amount of knowledge for encyclopedic indeed. He's clearly been boning up about fossils. And when he raises his hand at first, Ranger Ruth says, "You with the ears." And I immediately thought, racist.
That's what I thought too. I said, I don't know, what the relationship between the different animals and their cultures is like in the Arthur universe, but it seemed very strange to me that Ranger Ruth goes, "You with the ears." I think it would be just as offensive if, I forget what the moose character's name is, but if she had referred to him...
George,
if she said,
horns.
"You with the horns," I just don't think any kid likes being pointed out to by the way they look. Maybe clothing, like, I know that's what they were probably trying to evoke, you with the red shirt.
Yeah, you with the gut.
You, see, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah,
There's
really.
something not right
especially
about that.
Especially after seeing Zootopia, which was like, had all, I don't know if have you seen it?
I've seen Zootopia.
So like, the whole thing of just like don't call me cute, only like we bunnies can call people cute, and I'm just like, yeah, there's got to be some sort of line there, because of course there would be racism in Arthur's world if it's trying to emulate ours, because the world is terrible. I also appreciate how Buster drops some mad science about fossils, about what like the textbook definition, and then as they begin the little show, Brain kind of is like, "Yo, Buster, that was slamming."
I love that little character moment for Brain because, of course,
he appreciates good book learning.
Yeah, of course, given his name, Brain is smart.
Yeah.
But he's not one of those kids who he always wants to be the smartest person in the room. I think he just loves knowledge.
Yes,
so it
genuinely.
was cool to see that excitement from him of someone else being the smartest person in the room for once.
Just a real moment of camaraderie. So they have a little bit of a show about like how dinosaurs become fossils, and then at one point there are 2 guys dressed up in a
Brontosaurus. I believe it's a Brontosaurus. It could be something else.
You know what? Sure. Email Elwood City.
Littlefoot.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. We're wrong, which I'm sure we are.
We have to ask Buster. He would know.
Yeah, really. And so the two halves break apart, and I'm just like, come on, man. We rehearsed this. Like,
so I wasn't sure if
couldn't be our first show.
I wasn't sure if that was a botch or if that was a part of the show, because they break apart right when all the dinosaurs start to die out or go extinct in this sort of play. And I thought it was really morbid because as these dinosaurs split in half, the kids all laugh and they think it's hilarious that, as far as they're concerned, this dinosaur has been severed in 2.
I don't know if it would work that way. I think it was just a production botch on their point. So then they go fossil hunting. And I've got to say, after seeing this episode as a kid, I remember being like, I want to hunt for fossils. And then finding out the process, it's not nearly this cool. Like, it's not really, like, nothing against, paleontologists and people who genuinely enjoy this kind of stuff. It's like, there is a lot to enjoy there. But for the layman like myself, who is just kind of being like, I want to find a fossil, not that interesting.
I think
especially if you're a kid.
I think the problem is the expectation going in, right?
Yeah.
We see this episode of Arthur, and we expect, if I go on a fossil trip, I'm going to find a fossil.
Yes.
It turns out in reality, the chances of you finding a fossil is astronomically small because people have been looking for them for hundreds of years, and so most of the ones that have been easy to find, easy as reaching into a lake.
Grown-ass men with developed brains have looked for it.
So those have all pretty much been found. So unless you have advanced excavation equipment, you're probably not going to find something like a pristine dinosaur footprint.
No.
One thing I do want to say, though, is fossil hunting and its funness or not, this park seems fantastic.
It's a nice looking park.
They're in this canyon, and there's these walkways built sort of around the mid-level of the canyon, so they're not on the canyon floor, so it's still raised up. It seems like the kind of place where if I was to look at it as a kid, I'd be like, I want to go here. This looks so cool.
Very Safari Zone of it all. So they're going to go hunt for fossils in the stream, and everybody kind of has shorts on, and they're all cool with it. Although I do appreciate that Mr. Ratburn switches into his flood overalls. Everything's coming up Ratburn as he's kind of wading in there with his big cartoony overalls that can clearly take on water. I just thought that was really funny.
And he already had shorts on, too, so it's not like he really needed to put the overalls over his dress pants that he's usually wearing.
Yeah, it's just like he brought them, so he's going to get use out of them. So, of course, the kids spend time doing that, and Buster spends quite a bit of time feverishly searching for a fossil, even foregoing soda from the cooler. And just like when you're a kid and you skip soda, something's wrong.
Everybody breaks for their lunch break, and so they lose interest in looking for fossils. They all go over to their lunch break, and Buster's still there because he's adamant he wants to find a fossil. And Buster, he wants to stay with his friend, but he really wants to go on break. He even exclaims, "But Buster, they've got soda."
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a great delivery.
It's a total kid thing, too. Like, I'd be amped if they had soda. Arthur, just out of the blue, just reaches his hand into the stream, picks up the fossil of the episode that will become the crux of Buster's path through this episode. And Buster, great reaction where he just kind of stares, like shakes his head, and then his eyes become spirals and he becomes entranced with it. It's great. It's great.
The music that starts playing is sort of the go-to Arthur wacky music that when there's an action scene happening.
Yeah, it's a little bit elevator-y, and it kind of can go for like action or like intrigue or sort of stuff like that.
I found it really reminiscent. I'm not sure if you remember this, but the first level theme from Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. It sort of got that dun 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 dun. If you listen to them side by side, they evoke the very similar theme, I think.
I'll have to do that. I'll have to kind of put them side by side. But I don't doubt that you're right. So Buster claims ownership of that fossil, and he's over the moon about it. Arthur incorrectly identifying it as a leaf fossil.
So earlier when I was talking about certain voice moments being tattooed on my brain even more than images, it's this specific delivery by Buster.
A leaf fossil? Have you ever seen a leaf that thick?
Have you ever seen a leaf that thick? It's so great. Arthur's just bewildered. And Buster delivers the line like he's Al Pacino in Heat or something. He's just chewing the scenery.
You got a great fossil, and you got your head all the way up it.
Yeah,
You're totally right. He's because at this point Arthur could not care less about getting a fossil. He's just there for the ride. But this is Buster's, to this point, his life's work. So he is too legit to quit, and he has to correct him on that. So then they all kind of gather around to share their finds, and then Buster finds out is surprised to find out, shocked even, that they don't get to keep the fossils. And Buster, indignant white bunny, kind of has a little bit of an inner monologue of, I can't believe it. I can't believe they would do that to me. I'm just like, I'm a patriot, damn it.
So another reference to Indiana Jones, like we were talking about earlier. I'm not sure which character says it, but someone says word for word when asked where the fossils go. I think it's Ranger Ruth, and she goes, well, it belongs in a museum, which is a direct Indiana Jones line, and I have to think that was on purpose.
Right, absolutely. So Buster, not satisfied, he decides to stow it away in his huge bucket hat, in his Nazi hat, and absconds with it. And it's interesting because, of course, from their perspective, and they directly tackle this in a much later episode. But it's like Buster is stealing it, yeah. But in this case, compared to the later episode that I'm thinking of, it's like it's one of those things where it matters a lot to Buster and Arthur because they were, quote unquote, raised right. And of course, it feels weird to them that they're stealing something, or at least they feel like they're stealing something, when really, as an adult, it's just like, it's not that big a deal.
It's a common thing that your moral compass develops as you get older, and you realize there's more opportunities in life for shades of gray. So I remember there was a exercise where they asked all these kids about, is it right for a man to steal money if he's doing so to pay for his dying wife's surgery,
or to buy food for his family,
or buy food? I think that's what it is buy food for his family.
Absolutely. But
and
you're right.
Kids will across the board always say no, that's absolutely not okay, because from a kid, if you're brought up a certain way, you're told stealing is wrong, not stealing is right. As you get older, you realize, is them stealing this fossil the end of the world? Not really. There's far worse things you could do. But I remember when I was a kid, I would think about this scenario in the exact same terms Arthur and Buster do, where I would have thought, oh my God, they would chew me up inside of it. Oh my God, I've been stealing. It reminded me of when I was really young, probably like I must have been 5 years old, and I would have stole the blue putty from my preschool. That people would stick things to, papers to.
The sticky tack.
And I remember my mom got really mad at me, and she said, okay, you're going to bring this back tomorrow, and you're going to apologize for stealing this blue putty. Looking back at it as an adult, it's like they would have never have known it was gone. It was not a big deal. But what my mom was doing was using that as a teaching moment to teach me the consequences of stealing.
And I totally understand where she's coming from in the sense of just like, you never know when it's a slippery slope. Especially with kids, it's just like, it's like, I can get away with this. Maybe I can get away with something else. It can lead that way. It might not, because raising a child's really hard and not an exact science. But that's a good point.
There's a great sound effect when the camera shows that Buster's smuggling out the fossil. It shows an X-ray of the fossil within Buster's hat, and there's a ding when the fossil shows up. Made me laugh.
I remember as a kid when they're leaving, of course, Ranger Ruth is saying goodbye, and then briefly as they leave, Arthur and Buster see her as a T-Rex, and it's still Ranger Ruth's voice just pitched down, just like, bye-bye now. Bye-bye now.
It's the second part of this episode where characters turn into something else. That's a common theme in Arthur. I think in the DW All Wet, Pal and Kate turn into octopuses during a dream nightmare sequence.
Kate turns into an octopus at the beach, like not even in a dream sequence. And
people turning into things, it's a common image in Arthur throughout the series. They like to use that Cronenberg imagery of I'm turning into a T-Rex, bye now, and then turning back into a human. And I remember as a kid, that really scared me. Something about people turning into other people, add it to my list of neuroses. But I remember I've never been more scared in my life than the episode of Spider-Man, where Spider-Man turns into Venom Spider-Man.
Dude. Oh, dude.
I remember I was sobbing.
I thought you meant when he turned into the man spider.
Oh no, maybe that's
because when
I was like 7 at the time.
Well,
it's something to do with during the Venom saga with the symbiote.
That's
sobbing.
That's scary too, because it's welcome to Spider-Man the Animated Series cast. By the way, but that's like the dream where it's like Peter's having the dream, and there's like the giant black symbiote and the giant Spider-Man costume, and they're both like huge and like kind of like dripping or like really like
so maybe it was
liquidy?
Man Spider. I don't remember what, but I remember because I was crying and I was like, turn it off. Because I couldn't handle it.
Because Peter just wakes up with the black symbiote on him. But no, with the Man Spider, it's like he's literally like transforming. Like he's got the 6 arms, and then he transforms into a giant spider, and it's messed up. It's really messed up.
It was that. Ranger Ruth, and the scene from Superman 3 where she turns into the cyborg. All those things, they evoke the exact same fear in me where it's like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this.
That scene from Superman 3, I haven't seen the movie, but I know I have seen that scene. That's effed up for a 25-year-old. Like that's nuts. Of just like, and it like, of course, I think about this way too much of people transforming into other things, and just like the whole thing of just like she used to be a human and now she just isn't.
I think we've realized really the perfect storm of fear for me would be someone turning into a sea cucumber. That would be the thing that makes me lose my mind in the Cthulhu sense.
That sounds gross. But we learn more and more every day. If you want to email us with an ongoing list of Lucas's neuroses,
if you're a therapist, please get in touch.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. So it's clearly weighing a lot on Buster's mind as we go to dinner with him and his mother, and it's just a big plate of spinach. Just spinach on spinach on spinach. Like, that's it. There's nothing else on the plate. It's just spinach.
We've only really had 2 looks into what Buster's mom is like so far, and both of them give us a great insight into what Buster's mom's character is. Everybody as a kid knew the kid whose mom was a little bit more, how do I put this lightly?
Protective.
A little bit more protective, a little bit more involved, more helicopter parent than your average parent.
More fastidious.
So you can already tell so many things from these 2 moments of, one, she makes him wear the swimming cap. She's so adamant that she sends a carrier.
She sends it by messenger.
By messenger, which by telegram, singing telegram. Put the cap on. But also
pigeon sends it by crow.
Smoke signals. There's so many ways she has to ensure he gets this cap on. That's how important it is. But she also makes sure Buster has to have a healthy diet. And maybe I'm looking too much into it because Buster's parents are divorced.
Sure.
But it could be an aspect of because. Buster's dad spends most of his time. He's as we later learn, without
a face,
without a face, and piloting an airplane. Yes. So he's all over the world. Buster doesn't get to see him too often. Buster's mom sort of has to carry that burden and be as protective as 2 parents would be. So that's why she makes sure he eats healthy, like a full plate full of spinach,
which isn't really healthy. It's not balanced. But the other argument you could make is they're bunnies.
That's true. They're bunnies. It's either the bunnies or Buster's on the Atkins diet.
But they never really go into like how other animals, like how their diet is different. Everybody just eats like a person.
That's right. Arthur does not eat ants.
No, This is a really weird outlier. So at school the next day, of course, this is something I could also relate with of just, like I don't remember if I've ever really stolen something, but just kind of the feeling like having something you shouldn't, and then just being like you can't ever enjoy it because Arthur's just like, so when can I come over to see it? And he's like, you can't come over to see it. What if my mom came in? And then Arthur with a great point. What's the point of taking it if we can't even enjoy it? And it's just like that's an awesome point. And generally, like a great deal of kids, some won't, but some will, feel totally guilty and will, like for me as a kid and still today, I felt guilty about a lot of things. And so it would just be incredibly hard to enjoy something if I felt guilty about it, like nearly impossible.
There's a great montage of Buster hiding the fossil so his mom won't find it.
Yes.
And he goes to multiple levels. He puts it in a box full of marble. He puts it in a bag and then puts it in a box full of marbles and then hides that box full of marbles up in his closet. It got me thinking.
He wraps it in tinfoil first.
Right, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but it got me thinking, especially when he wrapped it in tinfoil. Man, Buster is going to get good at hiding weed from his parents when he gets older. He's already mastered those skills.
It was pretty good. Like I have to give him props for that one. And of course, as they're in the classroom, Ratburn, who is none the wiser to this, but just for no reason, laying it on extremely thick of just like, it's like, I know you were disappointed you couldn't take home the fossils, but they are extremely rare. It would have been miraculous if you had found dinosaur this or that, or even rarer, dinosaur footprints, and then Buster just pitches over. He can't handle it. It's getting to him. He's soft.
I was thinking because, like, I feel like Mr. Ratburn should have maybe gave this speech before they went on the trip, taper their expectations a little bit. Because I was agreeing with Mr. Ratburn. I was like, you're right, Mr. Ratburn. It's crazy that they found a fossil in the river their first try because of how rare fossils actually are.
Well, and the brain also found a fossil as well. So.
Yeah, 2 for 1? Not gonna happen, guys.
No way, not in a blue moon. So then we cut over to Buster's house. His bedroom is invaded by the fossil police.
Oh my god!
And so this is really something. This whole what we later learned to be a dream sequence because it isn't pitched to us like that.
It's so good.
So the fossil police is Ranger Ruth, and then the kind of stock police character, the bulldog guy, who we'll see again and again. And so
a lot of times in dream sequences as well.
Yeah,
a lot of authoritarian fear playing out in these. Rightly so. In these Arthur episodes.
Well, and
don't trust no cops. I'm kidding. There's lovely police officers out there.
Well, see, it's like Buster's no Omar. Buster Scare.
Yeah, Buster definitely Scare. This dream sequence though, what makes it great is it starts out and you're like, okay, this is like that dream sequence from Seinfeld where Jerry steals his cable and then he gets shot to death by the police for stealing his cable. And it's very similar where the police raid Buster's house. I guess the dinosaur police do not need a warrant. That's how intense dino crime is in Elwood City.
Dino crime.
The mayor's like. The mayor's you don't need a warrant. Just break down some windows. We got to put this dino crime busted some doors.
I'm pissed that Dino Crime isn't in my notes.
But the big twist is that's not it. It's not just an authoritarian nightmare, because the big M. Night Shyamalan-esque twist of this dream sequence
is not. It's not. The tip is not anonymous.
Yeah, well, not only that, they're not just looking for the fossil. There's a live dinosaur in Buster's closet.
It's true. So it's
kidnapping. We're upgrading him from just dinosaur theft to full-on kidnapping charge.
So the swerve is in. Arthur is the patsy. Speaking of soft, and
right. Arthur snitches on him
because as they drag him in, and this is kind of cruel and unusual in that they bring Arthur to the scene of the crime and make him face own up to what he did, which is its own kind of punishment. It's just like, I'm sorry, Buster. They made me tell. They tickled me, and I'm like, they did what? And I'm just like, okay. I think in the realm of Dino Crime, there's a certain amount of leeway you can have with the law, but we're getting into some shady. Like, I think that this Dino Crime unit is going off the books.
It's like they made it Ranger Ruth out to be Jack Bauer. Like she plays by her own rules.
Yeah,
she's like Cobra. She's like Sylvester Stallone in Cobra.
She's a real dirty Harry. She's done with it. How many dinosaurs did you kidnap? 6 or 7? In
the words of Cobra, Dino Crime is the disease, and I am the Ranger Ruth is the cure. And she'll
dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Yeah, by any means necessary. We could do this all day.
Your move, creep.
I am the Dino Law. You know.
Sure. Yes, believe me. I could continue riffing on Dino Crime. I'm so glad you said that. We have reason to believe you're hiding a dinosaur in this room, which Buster says is ridiculous. But of course, there's a sound emanating from the closet, and what should exit but an actual T-Rex?
A real life dinosaur, not to scale. He's small enough to fit in Buster's room.
You don't say. In his closet.
But it's also weird. Again, you think about like how the Arthur universe works. Okay, so we have animals that walk on all fours like Pal. Yeah. And we have sea creatures that don't seem to be self-aware or have consciousness like every other animal in the Arthur universe. Mm-hmm. And so dinosaurs, it's hard to tell. Is the dinosaur that Buster is illegally housing or kidnapping? We're not sure if the dinosaur came with Buster.
I don't know how he smuggled that in his hat.
Exactly. Can the dinosaur think? Does he want to live in Buster's closet? Was he escaping Dino prison?
Well, this is the Mr. DNA of it all. Of Buster in that closet, he's got his own Jurassic Park scheme going on. He's what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? He's reverse engineering a dinosaur from the fossil, from the amber in the sap and making his own dinosaur.
Nature finds a way? No. Buster finds a way.
Buster finds a way, but he should have not been asking if he could, and he should have been asking if he should.
Now, am I just remembering this wrong? Does the dinosaur talk, or is that only the Ranger Ruth?
No, that's only the Ranger Ruth. The dinosaur is just a dinosaur.
Buh-bye now.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of that.
So, of course, Buster wakes up screaming. It's a dream. A nightmare, I should say. And his conscience is getting the better of him, so incredibly dangerously, Buster leaves the house at night in his PJs, which Arthur the show does this several times, I think, and kind of makes it seem normal. It's not. Like, that's so, like, if I found out my kid did that, I would hit the roof. But because like Buster is just out at night in his PJs going to Arthur's place.
Well, it's not clear what time of night it is. I mean, as a kid,
okay, it could be their bedtime.
As a kid, you're like, depending on how young you are. I remember at some point in my childhood, after SpongeBob ended at 7:30, that was bedtime. Right. That's back when I used to wake up at like 4 a.m. to watch Dragon Ball Z. But depending on how old the kids are, which I think they're supposed to be around 11, right? Grade 3?
They are 8.
They're 8. So it could be like 10:30. From the looks of the way the scene is shot and the lighting and stuff, it seems like it's 3 o'clock in the morning. This whole sequence, the dream sequence, and then meeting to discuss this dinosaur, it's all shot and framed like a Martin Scorsese film. Like there's Dutch angles in the Dinosaur Nightmare.
Yeah,
when the reveal of the dinosaur happens, it's total Dutch angle. And I gotta think that was on purpose because it's all very The Departed, or well, this would have been before Departed came out, but it's all very like casino. They're meeting in the middle of the desert. They're meeting at night to discuss this stolen dinosaur.
So Buster's going over to Arthur, and Buster doesn't know that Arthur has a wire on him, and so Ranger Ruth and Mr. Ratburn are in the control of him. And Mr. Ratburn just grabs his shoulders like, Patriot Act. I love it.
I'm the dino cop that does his job. You must be the other guy.
Oh, it's my favorite line from that great movie. But Buster goes over to Arthur's place, kind of gets his attention with rocks at the window. And of course, as has been pointed out on the internet in a few memes before, they have each other's face on their slippers.
Right, a popular image on Tumblr. When they meet, they're both in their sleeping gear. Buster's wearing aardvark slippers. Arthur's wearing bunny slippers. A nice little touch.
Yeah, it's really cute because they're best friends. So they kind of decide what they should do, and then what I can only assume is 3 a.m. They call Ranger Ruth up at the, because clearly she doesn't sleep. Dino crime never sleeps, so neither does she. So they, kind of off camera, they fess up to it, but they do turn in the fossil, and they have a local paleontologist or what have you, local scientist man who is they're debating right now what kind of dinosaur it was.
I love this. It's a look into the drama within the paleontologist community because he's totally bad talking the other paleontologists. He's like, this doctor believes it's this dinosaur, but this doctor believes it's this dinosaur. And he's actually kind of putting it pretty lightly for the kids, but I gotta think that there's just strife within the paleontologist community. Guys calling each other hacks. People writing op-eds like, this guy's an idiot. This is obviously, have you ever seen a leaf this thick? It's obviously this kind of dinosaur.
Research getting debunked left and right.
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
And this is actually how I learned how to pronounce coelosaur, because it's written... it's spelled Coela. It looks like coelosaur, but it's actually coelosaur. And so the episode ends with Ranger Ruth showing them the fossil displayed, and it's dinosaur footprint discovered by Buster Baxter and Arthur Reed. And they give a good old cheesy white guy high five, and the episode ends. So they kind of learn their lesson. And I think it's a kind of a good way to impart the good old fashioned don't steal thing, where the stakes are relatively low, especially because I'll just reference this again and a bit more clear this time. There is a later episode in several seasons from now where Arthur and Buster actually do steal like a toy. So that one's quite a bit more high stakes and actually has some big time consequences. This one's a bit more of a softball, and I think it's fine for kind of the first episode.
I'm sure there's a paleontologist listener somewhere yelling into his headphones right now. It belonged in a museum. You're saying this isn't a big deal. It was an affront to science.
It belongs in a museum. So do you.
Oh my goodness, brutal.
So. All right, so there you go. That's Buster's Dino Dilemma, wrapping up the episode. What did you think of this, of our doubleheader this week?
A great pair of episodes. I think my favorite, personally, my favorite part of Arthur is when it gets weird. When it goes into dream sequences, when they have things turning into other things, body horror, Cthulhu-esque nightmares.
As body horror as Arthur gets, yeah.
The last couple episodes we watched were pretty much typical after-school special drama. The plainer type of Arthur episodes, but I love it now. They're starting to dip their toes in how weird Arthur truly can get.
Yeah, you're right.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, of course, because Arthur, as it got more comfortable in its own kind of skin, I guess you could say.
Formula.
In its own formula, then it kind of had the ability to veer off. Sometimes it would get like a little too weird, but I do appreciate when you're right, when we kind of go off script a little bit and kind of experiment with what we can do. In retrospect, I do like both of these episodes quite a bit. I know it's hard to kind of be critical of Arthur too much because I have such a fondness for Arthur. But I try to give credit where it's due and also try to kind of address it where it's not so great. But really, I think that especially for the beginning of the show, I think the episodes in the first season are generally pretty strong, and especially considering they had to lay the groundwork for one of the longest running kids shows ever, and I think that they're really showing it here. DW's episode, very good, and a great spotlight on what is a very varied character in DW, and of course Buster's always a treat, and I appreciate, like you said, you appreciate when it gets weird, and it's good when they're able to weave in a message like don't steal with a relatively lighter episode, or I guess a lighter episode for me as an adult, or one that kind of just gets a little freaky with itself. So
I thought it was
gives us a lot of material.
a really great pair of episodes. Always love a DW focused episode. Those are always really interesting because DW brings a completely different perspective to the world of Arthur than the rest of the kids who are all relatively the same age. And even more so, I like the Buster's Dino Dilemma because I think Buster is one of the characters that I most relate to. So I always enjoy Buster episodes. He's, I'm one of those kids who was pretty immersed in pop culture, and that was sort of the thing I was into as opposed to sports and stuff as a kid. And I feel like Buster's that kind of kid where he geeks out a little bit. He loves his comic books and Bionic Bunny and that kind of stuff. So I really relate to him.
And I think that the two of them paired together, Buster and DW, are kind of more like two of Arthur's more flawed characters, and I think that makes them a lot more real because like you said, you relate to Buster as much as DW is like a little too smart for her age. Like, you knew kids like that. Like, DW equally plays foil and hero. Buster equally plays dimwit and sage. So they can kind of they fit into different roles just because people do, and I think it's important to show people as kind of very varied, which a lot of the main Arthur cast does get. Like, we've discussed that about with Francine. I think Arthur gets that a lot too before we kind of get into not one note but less varied characters.
Like you said, it's hard to criticize Arthur, especially in these early episodes. If I was to level one criticism, it's that both of these story, not so much the DW one, but the Dinosaur one for sure, its third act kind of is a little bit rushed.
Yeah.
I feel like because they had to use so much of their time for that awesome dream sequence, Buster kind of turns on a dime in terms of what he thinks. He's so adamant about keeping the fossil for the first even more, the first 3/4 of this episode, that it's only really in the last, I want to say 2 minutes or so, or maybe even less than that, he has a complete change of conscience and he decides to do a total 180 on his decision.
It's a quick turnaround for sure, and they do it a bit better in later episodes. So yeah, not the greatest here, but still very, very enjoyable.
Small nitpicks.
Yeah, as most of season one is, and really, I think from my memory of Arthur, which is generally okay, I feel like the more the show goes along, the more that it's kind of like it's surprisingly strong, like from the very beginning. It's as it kind of goes along that you can kind of find episodes that are just like not all that good or kind of like weird and not the right way. But so for right now, I think it's doing just fine. And of course, I'm having a blast watching them. So that's our word on DW All Wet and Buster's Dino Dilemma. Happy to be back doing this. It was all worth it for Dino Crime, if nothing else.
I think we know what the name of this episode is.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you very much for listening. Depending on where you will have downloaded this, whatever you did download us, thank you very much. If you have anything to contribute to the discussion, to any corrections, anything, comments, criticism, anything you'd like to send us, Arthur-related or even not Arthur-related, it's elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Lucas, any final thoughts?
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now indeed. So thank you very much for listening to episode 3 of Elwood City Limits, and we'll catch you next time.